you? I did a batch of lard, 2 batches actually, and there was a big difference, and so I wanted to show you the difference. The one that you see over here was done with lard that was cut into bigger chunks. They were like maybe like 1.5 inch, 1 inch cubes, and I just put them in the roaster pan, roast them down, and I've really learned that the roaster pan and cooking, just controlling that temperature with a roaster pan is like the difference, a huge difference in what your lard will turn out like. But and I've been doing that for a few years, and it's just works really good for lard and tallow, anything that you really need to control the temperature so it stays really even. I do use it for a lot of things besides that, but because I use it to do my roaster chickens when I'm canning that chicken meat. I use it for all kinds of things. And you can buy them at secondhand stores like crazy. They're always in there for like half the price. It's an awesome deal, and I actually have 2 of them. One's just for backup mostly, but sometimes when I have a lot to do, I'll use 2 of them, like bone broth, all of that stuff. But today I wanted to talk about the lard and how these 2 batches turned out. Different, so much different, and you can see it in the color right here. This one versus this one. This one is very yellow, and this one is very white and clean looking. They were strained, and everything, the process was exactly the same, except for the fact that this lard was ground. So if you can have it ground, or if you can grind it yourself, and it's like one of those hand grinders, if you're not into doing your own meat and all that, one of those hand grinders that hooks to the side of the counter is super cheap. You can find them used all the time. They often have them at Goodwill, used stores, thrift them, or they're not very expensive if you have to find a new one if you can't find them, but they're just a hand grinder. When we're butchering all of our animals, I started doing the practice of making sure that the lard or the beef tallow was all ground before it came up to be cooked down and processed. And I had a batch sitting in the freezer that wasn't ground, and that's this batch, the dark, the yellow. So what has happened is the pieces are so much bigger. They're like 1 inch to some of them 1.5 inches at the most, which when you're cutting it up, that's not a very big piece, and it's a lot of cutting. But it takes so much longer for it to cook down and really process everything. Even though the temperature was exactly the same, the process was the same, it cooked at a low temperature. I like to keep it between like 150, no more than 200. And it takes quite a while. Like this, the ground lard, I put it in the roaster before I went to bed. It stayed at 150 all night. And then the next morning or afternoon, I was able to get to it. I turned it up when I got up that morning before I went down to do chores, to like almost 200, just right at around 200. And I never use anything over that, 200 max. And I always get really nice lard, and it's nice and white, nice and clean. It's beautiful. It doesn't have any taste to it. It's just really nice. But this is from the bigger pieces. It just takes so much longer for it to cook down and to get all that out. Plus you end up with more waste because it never truly cooks all the way down. You have bigger pieces left, and so you end up with a lot more waste. So I just wanted to really show the difference before I go into the process that I use of what it looks like, your end result, and how much better it's going to turn out if you can grind that meat. Grind it up, have it ground. If you're buying it from somewhere, see if they can grind it for you. It's really not that big a deal when you're already cutting the meat up and they're going to grind sausage or whatever anyway, to just take that lard and grind it up. But if you can't do that and you get all that lard and you need to use a hand grinder, that is something that's very easy to do. Lard is it's soft anyway, so you want it nice and cold, almost frozen when you're grinding it. And it grinds a lot easier than meat. So a hand grinder in that situation is not going to be that big of a deal because it's really soft. And so even if it's a hand grinder scenario and you're like, oh, it's going to be a lot of work, it's not that bad because it's really soft. So, but such a difference. We'll go ahead and we'll probably use this when we're cooking on the Blackstone. I probably won't use it. I haven't tried it yet to know. I don't think it's gonna have a strong smell or a strong flavor, but just in case, we'll probably save this for on the Blackstone so it's outside. But when I'm cooking like my French fries and all that, I like to toss them in lard so they get nice and crispy in the air fryer or in the oven. So I definitely want to use this one for the things that I'm cooking inside because I know it's not going to have any extra smell or strong flavor to it. Where this, I think it may, I don't know that for sure, but it sure looks a lot different than what these come out. And it's just, this is a partial, but it's not even completely hard all the way, but that is just so nice and white. And then this one, you can just really see the difference there. And I was just really shocked by the difference of just that it was the bigger pieces. But the bigger pieces took a lot longer to cook down, so it ended up cooking longer. And that is the only difference in the process. Hi, I'm going to start this lard. I'm going to show you a close-up. This is ground, just probably the coarsest grind that the grinder will do, the meat grinder. So, but whatever you have totally works. This is what it looks like here in the roaster pan. Okay, there's an up-close shot of what the lard actually looks like. And the thing about lard is it will melt in your hands. It's really soft, totally melts in your hand. The pig lard does that. Beef does not do that. It's a little bit hotter temperature, but lard is so soft, it'll melt right there. You can see that just melt in your hands. So that temperature, I'm going to keep it like at no higher than 200, remember, and I'm going to get it started. But this is what it looks like when I first put it in the roaster pan. Here's the roaster pan. So that's what the roaster pan, in case you weren't sure about what I was talking about. That's a roaster pan like Grandma would cook her turkey in, an old school roaster pan. We're just going to we're going to turn it on right at 200, no hotter. And we're just going to put a lid on it and leave a crack. I'm going to just leave the lid cracked like that. You can see there's a little gap there. Leave that on. And we're just going to walk away from that. Let it cook. Okay, guys, we're going to give this the first stir. It's been about 3 to 4 hours. As you can tell, it's getting there. The bottom, still a bunch of goo there, not broke up the center. It's kind of still really stuck together in the middle, so we'll give it a stir. And we'll probably leave it for another 3 hours before we touch it again. It's got a ways to go. Sitting at 200. And it looks just like I'd expect. We're just gonna let it cook. Okay, it's morning. It's been at like 1:50 all night. I'm gonna give this a stir. You can see all of the pork leftover bits are in the bottom. And it looks pretty yellow, but it's actually not. But it's ready to go in less than 24 hours. And there's really not a lot of stuff left in there because when it's ground, it cooks down. You can see like there's one there that's not cooked down all that far. But for the most part, we're pretty much ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and package some of this up.